this was the lesson that we've just done, and yeah, it was interesting. I think I was talking about what I'm going to talk about now, the time trial thing, putting yourself under pressure to do it within a minute and all that kind of thing. But I think that worked out quite well. What's interesting about this as well was the particular bit of software, charcoal. I wish I could do this with software, but charcoal was just a remnant that I found in the tin. It was quite dishevelled and beaten up, so I just scraped it. But the way it blended and the way it sort of went on was really good. You can see the density and the flow. And I have bits of charcoal every now and again that do that, and hopefully this drawing will be the same. Anyway, so I'm going to draw this guy, the guy in the glasses. There you go, that dude. And yeah, time trials. So I've never really been a fan of this thing. Like working, set yourself a clock. You know what I mean? I've got enough pressure without saying you've got to do it in a minute. You've got to do it in a minute. Oh no, I can't do it in a minute. I do it in a minute and 20 seconds. But I've never really been a fan, to be honest. And I've always, if anybody's asked me, I've always steered away from them as well. They do them on these some of these online things that happen. I know there's one that happened on a Sunday, and we're going to do a 10-minute or 5-minute or whatever. I mean, that's reasonable, I think, compared to some of these that are doing them at a minute. That's just like madness. And then what makes me really smile was the one in particular that triggered this was talking about, we're doing this so you can free up the marks, make them more looser and flowing, and then proceeds to draw it by leaning on the paper. the extent of his flow is that, so inevitably you end up doing little drawings, don't you? Why not just stand back, sit back, and let your whole arm flow? That's being more loose and free and all that nonsense. But no, it's as I say, for me, it just seems extra pressure I don't need. And the looseness thing, I cannot equate that to technique, because that's the first thing people think. It's the technique, is a looser technique. People say that, don't they? Look, I've got a looser technique. I don't want to loosen up my technique. It's not. It's a mindset thing. If you're whether your marks are flowing or precise and rigid, it makes no difference. You know what I mean? The subject will determine those things. If precision is the way that you respond to something, then that's cool. That's how it should be. You're not going to try and loosely paint something that requires precision, depending on your emotional response to something. So it's like, it just undermines the whole intellectual element of it. It dilutes it to this, craft-based, formulaic approach, and it's just, I think those kind of things just wind me up a little bit. I don't like the idea of it being just simply this, it's just this. To draw a nose, you're just this, you just do this. I hate all that. The easy way to paint, all that kind of thing. Get a blooming colour painting by numbers. If you want it easy, get painting by numbers. It's not about being easy. It's about manifesting your response to the world. Easy or hard. I've said that before about the easy or hard thing. If you watch one of my, or you've seen one of my posts about easy or hard, when you're in that kind of mindset, looking for easy ways to do things, that's never going to be right, is it? No, it's got to be, and this idea of setting some kind of time trial thing is going to in some way improve your response. It's not, is it? It's going to improve some kind of mechanical element to what you do, but this is not mechanical, unless you're an illustrator, in which case it is a mechanical thing. And you've got to consider the mechanics, the way of doing things. Because I know that, because that's exactly what I did. But to be fair, and I tell anybody who's illustrating, trace or project. This is the only way. If you want an illustrative, detailed style, trace or project. We're faffing around with freehand stuff. Just learn to colour in really well. That's the secret to illustration. It's got to be a precise outline that's either traced or projected, and then really well coloured in. That's all it is. That's all there is to it. But this idea of timing yourself or setting yourself time limits to your response, it's not good. For me, it's not good. But I know people do it, so I'm not gonna say that they're wrong and I'm right, because it's just a different thing, isn't it? It's just I don't see the benefit from it. Not for me anyway. And I know people do, and they do benefit from it, and they get them. And I just think it improves their ability, their I'm not sure it's skill, but it improves their control of the medium, perhaps. See, the biggest thing of with the time trials, the biggest thing it addresses, I think, is the fear of making marks. I mean, but even then, people will still have fear of being wrong, even when they're working under pressure and they've got an excuse for it to be wrong. They'll still be frightened of making, doing it wrong, making the wrong marks. So that's your issue. No matter time trial will alleviate that fear. You've got it's a mental thing, like I say. Working quick, working with fast strokes, working with loose strokes. It's a mindset thing. It's you determine. But I mean, it's kind of, if you want it in layman's terms, it's just a mindset. You just got to don't fear making the marks. But if you want to understand what it's really about, it's about the fact that your response to a subject may or may not be fast and loose. It may or may not be precise. But that's your response to the subject. So understand that it's that drives the way that you make your marks, not the ability that you've developed because you've been doing these time trials. So I think it kind of it blows apart the whole process of learning to do this, because if you think like that, because with it being a known quantity and it works, people find that the time trials make them quicker, slicker, not necessarily more accurate, but you can see that the people become more at ease with doing it, I suppose. And but to what cost? I'm not sure that there's any benefit to it. I think the way that you make marks is nothing to do with the time it takes to make the marks. Because what I was talking about this morning in the lesson, you can work quick, but it can be a slow process. It can be I make quick marks. You see, I make quick marks, but it's not quick. It's a slow process. So my marks are loose and quick, but the whole process is slow. So it doesn't work, following the way that these people suggest you to work. It's not about the overall drawing. And you'll see them doing them in the outlines like this and with scrappy little pens, and it's not about that. The overall marks that you make. It's about the individual marks you make. Now this is interesting because there are times when, for instance, so you're drawing hair, you may want to make fast and loose and flowing marks, and it's at that point that you need to understand about the efficiency, economy, and accuracy, efficiency, and economy aspect, which is this root of suggestion and implication. You've got to understand about that, because that's not if you don't, it gets in the way. You start to try and draw things when really this is the time when you're applying that rapid application. But then it might slow down when it gets further to another place on the face. So it's many things. Most of them, as I said, are driven by your response to the subject. They're not really a conscious decision. It's just about how you respond to the subject. So yeah, as I said, for me, I don't like the time trial thing. I just think it breeds a certain kind of mentality towards it that I don't think is good. It's the idea that it's all about technique and skill, that kind of thing, which I think it is if you're an illustrator. And like I said before, you don't need to worry about working fast and loose and loosen up your style kind of thing, because you can just trace or project it, which is what you should do. But if you're into something more responsive like I am, and it has to feel, it's the way I feel about a subject that drives the way I respond to the subject. So it's not about not just about how I see it, because it is about how I see it, but how I see it depends on how I feel about it. And there are times when it's clear that the emotional response is a driver. When you've got a moody shot, or the lighting's such that it looks very emotional. And there are times when it's not like that. I tend to, as you can see with a lot of the drawings that I do, I tend to fiddle with the contrast of the drawings. Mostly I affect the levels in Photoshop, and then that then affects all the aspects of the image. But it's me creating a emotional aspect to it. They're not always that emotionally charged. Sometimes they're just pictures of people. I mean, I try and make sure that the lighting's right, because I always like sort of single source if I can, and it will be, it will create the right kind of shadows, but on the shape of the face. But that's just me wanting something to draw and wanting to make it easy, because it's easy when you've got dark shadows and things. But other than that, if you can find images that have an element of emotion about them, then obviously it's going to be a lot easier to connect with them, and it's going to be a lot easier to respond accordingly. But that, as I said, is the reason why I make the marks the way I make the marks. The other factor to it as well, and I've mentioned this about the charcoal earlier, but this charcoal responds in a certain way. You can see it. It's got a broad range of tones. It's homemade, by the way, if anybody's asking. It's just homemade from hazelwood, but it's not guaranteed. I can't guarantee every time I use it that I have this kind of quality, but it does impact on the way that I draw, because it's the biggest thing is this, when you're kind of looking at something and you're feeling the character. Every part, when you look at it, I can feel with this, I can feel this guy's character, right? And every time you look at that, the charcoal, my hand tells the charcoal to do something. And if it requires that I have to press on it, I have to deliberately to get a mark that's as accurate as I need it to be, it takes away that spontaneous response, the lie detector thing, where every breath, every pause is actually reflected in the tip of that needle. So a piece of charcoal that has there's no pressure at all with this. So when I'm talking about velocity and attack velocity and pressure, there is this is primarily, there is attack in it. There is some attack when I start to make marks. There's attack in these marks, but generally it's more to do with pressure. and some of the velocity as well. I mean, velocity is just going to affect the way that the tones behave in terms of the density, because the quicker the marks, the less charcoal is going to be on there, and so on and so forth. But a piece of charcoal that what works like this is invariably has a different result. And I've done this before and you've probably seen me when I've done like 7 drawings in a day, because the charcoal is like this. The charcoal, it doesn't require that much effort to be able to make to be able to capture what I'm trying to capture. So the charcoal is a big contributing factor to that. But as I said, the majority of the way that I respond to things, the majority of the marks that I make are nothing to do with this idea that it would be a rapid process, and I would have developed this using time trials. It's nothing to do with that. It's all to do with the way I feel about certain things. And I tell you what, you can see how it works is that when you get near to things that don't matter, you get near to things that are at the extremities of things, this doesn't matter. This is what matters. The eyes are primarily what matters, and maybe some of this darker shadow on the side of it. When you get near to things that don't matter, your marks become quicker because they're irrelevant. So I would just put that in there. Just put that in there. It doesn't really matter about that, so I'm just going to do that. And so it's not just about that overall, speed or whatever you want to call it, or even looseness. Not all about that. The looseness appears when you make those decisions about, it's not really important, that bit. But the thing is that people draw everything. I think on a face, there's not much of it is that important. Not everything on the face is important. So learning to recognize what is and what isn't is the first step. So it's the hierarchy thing. So when you're looking at when you move to paint or draw something, there's always going to be one thing that makes you want to do that. And that's the thing you focus on. Everything else is just secondary. Everything else is just supporting that one aim, which is to respond to that thing that makes you want to capture them. So it may be the eyes, maybe the hair, maybe something else. So, but that then affects the way that you make the marks. And so they could be rapid marks, they could be very loose marks. It can be anything, but it's affected by the way you feel about the subject. As simple as that. But this is way beyond, the fear thing. It's way beyond that just doesn't exist once you're in a place where you understand what this is all about. It's not about this technical ability. I'm going to just become really proficient. As I say, if that's your thing, then you're an illustrator. Just be an illustrator. Get on with it. And having done that for so long, I advise people to do that. I think the thing about it's nice being an illustrator because there is always a measurable outcome, or there is a goal to which to work to, But for me, it wasn't fulfilling enough. It was just look how clever I am, and that's about it. I wanted it to be a bit more than look how good I am at wielding an airbrush or whatever it was I was using at the time, because I went through everything: airbrushes, color pencils, gouache, never oil, because that was the thing that I came to when I came back to it. But just do the thing. Just get used to the idea that it's a production process, and don't try and call yourself an artist and you're being creative, because what you're doing is just making replicas of things. That's what an illustrator does. But you look at some great painters that call themselves painters, but in fact are illustrators, and it's fantastic. It'll never be the kind of thing. I saw somebody today doing a kind of they do call themselves an illustrator, but they painted a kind of sergeant type-esque woman in a chair, skillfully, but they'll never be. It can never compare that to a master like Sergeant. It was just when they would compare, look at how good I am, I can paint like Sargent sort of thing, but not really, I'm afraid. But that's the thing. Sometimes my friend who was an illustrator for a lot longer than me, and he then retired and thought he'd be a painter, and suddenly realised that the difference between an illustrator and a painter is just phenomenal. So he was painting like, yeah, sort of, the twee little scenes and chickens. He was painting chickens. As an illustrator would, you choose to paint those sort of things. An illustrator, you got a job coming that you're doing. I don't know. You're doing I've got a better ruler, but it's not that good, is it? That you're doing a packaging for oxos, chicken oxos. So you'd end up drawing or painting chickens, for the packaging. But he was doing that for his paintings, and no doubt they'd sell, but they'd never sell for anything that was worth his time. When you're an illustrator, you could get paid good money for drawing chickens. When you draw chickens to go in the local art show in the library, you get 100 quid if you're lucky. You might get 50 quid. So when you were doing it for a job, you'd have got your day rate. Your sort of 750 quid a day sort of thing. But you never get anywhere near that when you're doing it for the local art fair. And then you submit it in the art fair, and the judges are the local bank manager, the local MP, and the mayor. So these are the people with this such aesthetic understanding that they can judge your chickens. So, but as I said, it's good. If you want to do that, that's it. Just know you. I think one of the things about coming back to this, and I'd say my problem was initially was you just got to know where your place is. I'm not trying to be an illustrator. I don't want to do it technically. I'm not trying to be I'm not even trying to be a painter. I just want to do what I do. And it turns out however it turns out. It's that kind of thing. So I don't know. It's more philosophical than it is an artistic endeavor, which is, you can tell from the way I ramble on. But it is as much a thinking process as it is a doing process for me. But all the people that tell you this is the way to do it, and if you do it this way, and the time trial thing, it's a strange thing, because it's like it may well work for them and many other people, but the work thing is what concerns me. I say about the learning skills before you, like somebody said the other day, I learn the skills before I start trying to express myself. Well, that's just a problem, that, isn't it? It's the same thing. When you are brilliant at drawing hands, then you go off and you start looking for images of hands, don't you? Or you do whatever. So you're just never going to challenge yourself other than within the remits of what skills you developed. So I don't know. As I said, it's one of those things. If it works for someone else, brilliant. But it doesn't mean to say it's going to work for you. But the other downside to that is you don't know. You don't know if it's not working for you. You just get so engrossed within the skill idea, ideas of skill development, because that's the first thing. When people fail to do something, they feel they fail to do. We should never fail, but there are people that judge what they do as a failure, and the first thing they do is go and think they will need more knowledge, when they need to know more about the bone structure in a hand, or how a nose works, or they'll need to know those things. So it shifts them from being a creative endeavor to being a knowledge journey. So you're going to start exploring the mechanics of a hand and anatomy and all the rest of it. But the thing is, it will work. You will end up in a place where you know more about hands and draw hands better. But is that the right place for you? Because you won't know at this point that you've been assimilated into that way of thinking. You won't know whether or not you could have been something else, that you could have been more because you were locked into the concept, the idea that it must comply with this and the outcome must be this. You were locked into that idea. But that's the hardest thing. you got, how can you, I mean, I don't give a damn, really. I think that's probably what it is at root of all what I do. I just love doing it. And sometimes it's absolutely pants, it just doesn't work. But I don't mind. I don't mind that at all. I always think that if it's not working, then there's something wrong. I think it has to be an element of error, of not mistakes, but something that's not quite right. I think I need to know, because then I know I'm exploring the possibilities, or I'm pushing myself, or however you want to word it. But I do think that it's important for me that it's not perfect every time. That would be so monotonous. That would be because I've developed a habitual method that I just apply it every time, and it works. It's formulaic. It's like cup of soup for artists. I don't want that. I don't want it to be guaranteed. And that, as I said, is the problem when you think that you're failing, that you'll go off and do something, learn about a particular. I've got two rubbers, two kinds of rubbers, and I'm trying both of them, see whether or not they're able to rub out. But yeah, as I said, the problem with the knowledge pursuit thing is that it can impact on you in ways that you don't know. So you wouldn't know whether or not you've done any damage simply because you've gone up and understood more about the note structure of a nose. You don't know what damage that would have done. To a lot of people, they say it wouldn't be a damage. It wouldn't be damaging at all. The usual suspects, the people that come on here and tell me that I'm wrong. Those. I know more about art than you can, characters, and that's fine. I mean, I don't care. As I said, I think that the problem is that we sort of fall into the trap of seeing people execute things in such a way that is impressive or successful, shall we say, and it's inevitable that you're going to be drawn towards these formulas that they propose as the solution. So, and whether that's a time trial or whether it's a knowledge search or whatever it is, you'll be sort of pulled towards that one thing. But yeah, I say it's something that I came across early on, and I didn't like it. I mean, I did one of these Sunday afternoon thingies, and they had a professional artist on there doing the time trialing thing, and I didn't take part in the time trialing thing. They provided the reference, and I just drew the reference. I videoed it, and I tagged it and sent it back to them, and they completely ignored it. But it's like that thing. They say, just tag it in, and we'll all. Well, how come mine didn't show on Instagram? Yeah, because basically I'd actually shown how it should be done. Not follow this and then we'll just do a little bit. They see the one thing that they'll do as well is they'll do the same thing. So the same reference. So the problem is with that for me is that you have one response to that thing about you only get one chance to make a good impression. Well, it's that you only have one opportunity to assess and respond to a subject, and you'll make your mind up on that one occasion. That one thing will decide on how you respond. So regardless of how well you execute your response, that's your initial, your primary response, and the purest response you'll have to a subject. You want to be cashing in on that. You don't want to be. Oh, I'll do it next time. I'm going to get the nose a bit better. That you don't want that, because if it is about I'm going to get the nose better next time, you're missing the point. whether the nose is right or not the first time is irrelevant. The it's a better rubber into that one. The your response will be more than just simply execution, or should be. You know, a lot of people it isn't, but illustrated again. You know, so. But I say I've done them, but I couldn't see the benefit at all. For me, I know people do benefit from them. I'm not trying to cause any arguments or anything. I'm just thinking from my point of view. I also think that when students are doing, I don't do it with students, so it's always as long as you like, take as long as you like type of thing. I just think it creates more pressure. You're doing it at the same time. And if your method of making marks isn't a spontaneous and flowing method, I doesn't mean to say you can't, you shouldn't do this, or you couldn't make it feel loose and expressive, because you could, regardless of the time it takes you to make the stroke, it can still be loose and expressive. There's lots of these tips and tricks type of people that do this. There's one where you can only paint something in so many strokes. There's that one. I've just seen that someone doing that, and again, it's one of those missing the point sort of thing. Just explain why using fewer strokes is important, and I think most people would then understand why using fewer strokes is important. But it's all wrapped up in some kind of childish condescending package. It's sort of presented as that. Oh, you're a child, you should understand it like this. And you see, the thing is that's kind of contradictory. You may want to learn to have a looser style, and using fewer strokes might be one way to do that. But I think that the real benefit from doing something like that would be that the economy, it's the accuracy, efficiency, economy thing. So the economy of your lines, the economy of your marks. What's the fewest marks you can use to illustrate or to capture this one thing? What's the fewest marks that you can use? Is the question, and that's all you need to ask. You don't need to say, oh, you can only use 40 marks or whatever it was in this thing to paint this face. It doesn't matter how many. It's just as long as you're as long as the marks that you use are efficient and economic and accurate. Obviously, I mean, the accuracy thing is the fundamental one. First you start with accuracy, so it's got to be in the right place, and then if it's just one mark or if it's 2 marks, fine. That's the efficiency, and the economy is to remove any of the excess marks that you might think were important, or you might think were unnecessary. So. But that's not the same as, oh, you're gonna. It's just I don't know. It's one of those things that teaching people how to do it without explaining why you're doing it is a problem for me. Anyway, you can see with this charcoal as well. And I was doing it on the previous one. The painterly aspect of it. Now, using this charcoal on this paper creates this granular, the granular feel about it. Even on that one from yesterday, this has got to have a granular feel about it. If I use paper that's cartridge but not this abrasive, and this is a very fine, you probably can't see that, but it's a very fine makeup. If it will give me more of a washed type of feel, and it will not have this granular graduation, which I prefer. I prefer it to this. This is a bit a bit grubby and a bit dirty in a way. So I don't like it because of that. I like it to be much cleaner. But as I said, it's just the paper I've got. I had a look this today when I went and got the rubbers, but it's just all Winsor & Newton, Dale around and all that 15 quid stuff. I'm not spending that kind of money on paper. This pad was probably one of the most expensive recently, which was about a £5, I think. But normally, if I can get a hold of it, it's going to be a couple of quid that I'll spend on it. I just do so much. I don't want to, spend on a 15 quid Winsor & Newton sketchbook that's a load of rubbish anyway, and it's no better than the cheap stuff I get for a couple of quid. So I don't want to spend loads of money when I'm doing 3 and 4 of these a day and chewing through the books. So, but as I said, the downside to it is you get the difference. I don't mind. I think it's good that there's it's different every time, and it keeps me on my toes, and I respond differently, and it's good. It's just part and parcel of it. It's because I respond to a subject, I work in a certain way, and because the medium and the materials are behaving in a certain way, I respond to those as well. So all of it's connected. All of it's a in the moment kind of activity, which is the best way to draw, particularly when you're working on portraits. Being in the moment is a critical thing. If it's freehand, that is. If it's traced and projected and coloured in thing, then being in the moment is not really a consideration. But I think I'm more or less done with this. I'm probably going to put some of the finer beard elements into that and at the top there, it's just tweaking things. I've said this before about the time I spend sorting out the balance of the tones is probably the greater part of the what went into the drawing. It's nearly always about the tonal aspects of it. It's just because it's that bit that gives it the form. And the only thing I would say, and that we're talking about the time trial and the rapid motion and the rapid marks. What I like about the rapid initial marks that I make is that there are relics of rapid marks, this kind of thing, these kind of things. Don't ask me. I mean, I think that's probably just a style thing. It's just something that I like, and it's just a consequence of the way I work. So, but it's not something that I would teach people to do. It's just something that I arrived at and I like. So, yeah, time trials I think are great for some people, but I don't think they are great for me. I think it's an extra pressure, an extra stress that I don't need. As you can see, my marks are quick and lively anyway. So, but that's my mindset that does that, not a deliberate thing. Yeah, so I'm done, and I'm going to clean up various parts of it, as I said, with the rubber, which is just looking like this, and the nose wants to be a little bit better as it comes around there, but smaller. I'll fix that, get rid of some of these hard lines on it, and yeah, just about, not quite. I think the other part of the rubber thing is that it's still down to the paper. Sort of, no matter how good the rubber is, if the paper's not right, taking it off is still going to be difficult. I say I'm done now. Let me get this moustache coming down better. Down there. Yeah. Okay. I think the beard needs a bit more definition there, because it just looks like it's a highlight on the side of his face. But I think there's a little bit of definition needed there, just to make sure it's clear that it's a beard, not just a highlight. It's a bit better. And then it's the finer lines that are in there. Yeah, I think the rubber, you see it's coming now. I think the rubber needs to be a little bit more capable than it is. Whether or not I can, I might swap to the other one again. Back to the two different brands, so don't know yet. Don't know which is the better of the two yet. Didn't get 100 Newton, no. I didn't have much fun with that last time. I think that's peculiar to me. A friend of mine only uses 100 Newton, and he's no problem with it. Different paper though. He uses like Bristol and all that kind of stuff, and he's got more money than me, so he can afford to do stuff like that. But I wouldn't. Would I use it if I could afford it? Probably not. I think the challenge of using materials that aren't, I don't know if right for the job is the way to describe that, but the challenge of using materials that aren't right for the job just brings something out in me. I think that's always been the case when we used to do advertising in the shops. We had fashion shops. We could never afford to print things, or we could never afford to. We could always do the photography, because obviously my wife was the model and I took the photographs. So, but we could never afford to print them or to post them. So we found more creative ways. I mean, it was before the internet, so we couldn't have used social media. But yeah, but I like that. I like and as I said before, with this in the studios, if we had limited budget, we always came up with better ideas. So I think the not having the right medium, the right materials, the expensive stuff, it just brings out the best in me. It brings a different kind of creativity out of me. Right, as I say, I'm done now, and I'm going to just fix a few things. Maybe the nose is a bit too bulbous, but I don't know. I'm going to let him have a big nose. I think you can have a big nose, and yeah. Yeah, sort that out. That's not good. Better. Okay. Right. I'll catch you in the next one.